Programming operating system. Yesterday we had to start discussing from here. So as I was discussing about multi-program operating system, they execute more than one program at a time. Okay, so it is not just like executing more than one programs, but such systems are usually client server based. And they are not only multi-programming, that is not only multitasking, but they are multi-user systems as well. That is, they support more than one user. Right now, the kind of systems which you people are familiar with, those systems have one monitor, one CPU. CPU will have a motherboard. Motherboard will have one microprocessor chip. Okay, and everything will be there within your vicinity, and this is your personal system. That is the reason why name PC or personal computer is given to such computers. But in case of a multi-user system, normally it comes with a large CPU, which is normally known as a server. Okay, it would be a larger than normal box, a very huge box, right? Sometimes a larger CPU box is used with maybe one or two microprocessors. Very such systems have high data storage capacity. Okay, the hard disk capacity would be very high. They have high RAM. Okay, some can also extend up to a few tera. I mean 1 terabyte also, and mostly it is up to 32 GB. Okay, and then it also has, it may or may not have more than one processor. Okay, may or may not have one processor or one single processor with multiple copies of itself or mirror images known as cores. Okay, so such systems are there which have a very high configuration, and they are known as servers. And servers are usually kept in a very protected environment where there would be very less interaction with too many people. Okay, and servers are normally attached to terminals. Terminals could be basically a computer with, it's not a computer, but it could have consist of a monitor, that is a screen, along with a keyboard, and sometimes even a mouse. That is, output and input console is given, that consists of a terminal. And each user has his own terminal. Like you can see over here, I have created 6 terminals here. So it would mean that 6 different users would be using each of the terminals. So this is 4, 5, and so it appears to every user as if he is working on his own personal computer, because this configuration of the server is so high that it can easily support more than one user. Of course, there is an upper limit on how many users a particular server can serve. Like in our school, we have a server which can serve at most 20 to 25 terminals, right? So likewise, here also you can see that the server serves more than one user. This kind of a setup is sometimes more economical and cost effective when it comes to purchasing 6 different computers with different CPU boxes for each. That would cost more. Rather than that, if one server is purchased and rest all are the terminals, which can even be created by recycling the old PC monitors or the keyboards, the company could save a lot of cost. Understood? So mostly in companies, in institutions, okay, and in various other places where or commercial settings, they use this kind of a client server based setup, right? Where normally the system works on a multi-programming environment where a multi-programming operating system is used such that it can handle multiple users and different programs or processes coming from each of the users, because there the operating system needs to figure out the priority of different processes, which process has to be handled first. So operating system's main task is to handle this priority, and that is what job scheduling. That is which task should be completed first. So your operating system takes up various strategies or various algorithms or methods to figure out how to handle different processes or more than processes simultaneously, right? Okay, so sorry for this disturbance. Okay. Anyway, so job scheduling we were talking about. So such systems normally have, they take up different types of techniques for fixing which job or which process should be scheduled first. Now in such kind of systems, normally they have more than one programs coming from different users, right? So it has to maintain the status of each program or each process. Status of the CPU maintains, the operating system maintains the status of each process separately. So when one program has to be executed, okay, it comes into the RAM, starts executing, and then maybe it comes across some input or output statements which are not executed by the CPU. At that time, the CPU switches from one process to another. Let me tell you one thing, students. Okay, there was a network issue. Okay, see, it always happens. One second. Okay, I just got distracted. You know, some or the other thing is happening today, so I'm getting quite distracted. Wait a second, where was I? Yes, let me tell you, give you a small program over here, like I'm writing here. You don't have to worry about it. It's just for explanation. Okay. So we ask a value from the user, enter a value, and then print SQ. Now, this is a short program for printing the square of a number. Square of a number means a square, right? So a is being asked from the user. So this particular statement is an input statement where user will be entering some value, right? Second statement over here, which you see, that is a processing statement, which will be executed by the CPU. And the last statement over here is an output statement. Remember one thing, students, CPU will only handle processing statements. Statements which need some kind of calculation, arithmetic calculation, or any type of comparison or logical operation. CPU is going to handle only those statements. Input and output statements. They are statements which require the help of input or output devices, and hence they are handled by a separate part known as the IOCS, which is known as the input output control system. Input output control system is one of the modules or one of the main major functions of your operating system only. So operating system is going to handle how this input and output statements are going to be executed, because CPU will only handle the processing statements in a program. So how multi-programming works? Now, if one program is there in the memory, okay, one program is executing and CPU comes across input statements. Okay, that's why. So we were talking about a program, a simple program made in any language, right? Input statement, the CPU starts executing this program and it comes across input statements. A CPU is not going to handle the input statements because here input devices have to be used. Data has to be entered by the user. वहाँ CPU का कोई काम नहीं है. Normally at home, what we do? If suppose like my work is to wash the dishes, my mom's work is to cook food. Until and unless food is cooked, how will I wash the dishes? I won't wash the already clean dishes, right? Once the food is cooked, then everybody eats. Only after that, I'll be able to wash the dishes. So until and unless this input is taken from the user, how is CPU going to start executing? So while the time, the moment the CPU encounters input or output statements in a program, it issues an interrupt. It generates a CPU interrupt, which is a kind of a signal. This signal is generated by the CPU to let the operating system know that the program has some input statements first, which have to be handled by the IOCs. And in the meantime, the CPU switches from one program to another program. राइट तो एक प्रोग्राम से सीपीयू स्विच कर जाता है दूसरे प्रोग्राम एंड this in the meantime this process, the previous process, its input operation is being performed and CPU executes the statements in the other process. So it keeps on switching between processes. Okay, one process, the next process, the next process, and so on. And then again it comes back to the first process. So by the time it revisits the first program, input has already been taken and now the processing statements can be executed. So they are executed, then again it comes across output statement, it will again switch from that program to the next program. This is how multi-programming works. Students, PowerPoint window is open now. Can you see the PowerPoint window now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. I have to take this feedback today because there is a lot of network issue today. So these are generally multi-user systems where more than one user uses the common computer, that is CPU and memory, for executing their program. So you can mark these words here: common computer, which contains the same CPU and memory, which is shared among the different users. Some examples of multi-program OS. Exec2 was an operating system developed for the UNIVAC 1107 by Computer Sciences Corporation CSC while under contract to UNIVAC to develop the machine's COBOL compiler. So this kind of a system, UNIVAC, Universal Automatic Computer, so this type of a computer existed in the around 1970s or 1980s. Okay, very early systems which were developed. So at that time the operating system used was this. Just like we use Windows on our computer, similarly this was the name of the operating system which was used at that time. Unfortunately, I don't have any screenshot of this because it's an obsolete operating system which is not used anymore now. We have better operating systems now which have multi-programming, multi-user capacity. Next is RC4000 systems. So these are also, this is also another type of an operating system, and basically these operating systems are for a particular series of computers. So this RC4000 systems is actually a brand, a series of computers which uses a specific type of multi-programming operating system. Then we have another example, VMS operating system. You can find this word open, which says that it is an open source software. Then most operating systems used for mainframe computers, they are also multi-programming systems. Why? Because mainframe computers, they also handle various clients, various users, right? More than one users. So you can see the name ZOS, Z, it is for the Z series, IBM Z series mainframe computers. Okay, this operating system is created for the IBM Z series computers, mainframe computers. So Z oblique OS, which says that it is an operating system. And for IBM Z Enterprise of system also we have Z Enterprise OS. Another one, ZVM, ZVSE. These are different types of operating system which are created for different models of mainframe systems. And let me tell you, most mainframes, you will only find IBM there because IBM captures 90% of mainframe market, right? Then you have the next type of a system which is known as time sharing operating system. In case of multi-programming, we saw that if CPU starts with a program and it comes across input or output statements, it will switch to the next program, right? Now, what happens in time sharing operating system? A definite time interval is given to each process to execute. So in time sharing operating system, I have opened my Microsoft whiteboard here, students.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Time sharing OS. Now, by the name itself, it is clear that it has got something to do with time, sharing of time. So, a specific time interval known as time slice is given to each process. It could be 3 microseconds, it could be 5 microseconds, anything which depending upon the specifications given to the operating system. So that is given to each program, right? Like process 1 is executing. Now, irrespective of the fact whether there are input statements or output statements, that much amount of time will be given to process 1. So process 1 will execute on the CPU for say 3 microseconds and then it will switch to 2. P2 will execute for 3 microseconds. In the meantime, P1 can complete its input output. Okay. And then again, once P2 also completes its time, it will move on to P3. Now, once P3 completes, it will again come back to P1. Again, P1 gets 3 microseconds. It executes the rest of the statements for 3 microseconds. Then again, CPU switches to P2. So this continues in a round robin fashion. Okay, so it is also a type of scheduling known as round robin scheduling of jobs, where a definite time interval is given to each process to execute on the CPU. Okay, and CPU keeps switching between each of the processes, right? Our Windows operating system also uses features of both multi-programming and time sharing operating system. Remember, at a time, only one process is executed. The reason why, if I can perform multiple things, like I play 2 movies on my system, suppose one movie is playing on Windows Media Player, another one is playing on VLC Player. To me, it would appear as if both of them are playing at the same time. But actually, what is happening inside is your operating system is making the CPU switch between the processes so fast that it almost appears to us that it is simultaneous. But actually, the system is, your computer is handling one task at a time only. But that switching is so fast within matters of fractions of seconds that it appears as if it is working at the same time, right? So definite time interval is given to each process to execute. multi-user OS where more than one user submit their processes for execution. Again, such operating systems are multi-user operating systems. Each active user program is given a fair share of CPU time so that none of the programs or none of the users would starve. Starve means wait indefinitely for an uncertain period of time to get access to CPU. A discontinued at normally now what happens nowadays, this time sharing operating system, this has become obsolete, a thing of history, of thing of past. So a discontinued operating system for RCA mainframe computers of the Spectra 70 series, TSOS. Its name was TSOS, that is Time Sharing Operating System, was originally designed in 1968 for the Spectra 70 by 46, a modified version of Spectra 70 by 45. These are names of computers. Okay. You can see it over here. The screenshot shows BS2000/OSD is still offered by Fujitsu Siemens computers and used by their mainframe customers primarily in Europe. Right. So in Europe, it is still operational at very few places. Right. So this is a time sharing operating systems. You won't find much, but latest operating systems, they have time sharing features. Some more examples: compatible time sharing system, Plateau. Cray time sharing is for Cray computers, that is supercomputer. Network, Livermore time sharing system. These are some examples. Unfortunately, their screenshots are not available again. Why? Because they are obsolete systems. Now we come to very important, that is real-time OS. What are real-time operating systems? And these operating systems are still in use. In real-time OS, jobs have fixed deadlines. Remember this, they have fixed deadlines and the jobs have to be within their deadlines. Each task has to be completed within that particular time frame. If a job cannot be completed within its deadline, this situation is known as deadline overrun. Some examples. Where could this real-time system be used? HDTV receiver and display. It needs to read a digital signal, decode it, and display it as the data comes in. See, HDTV receiver and display, any live telecast or any live broadcast of a match is going on, right? Your audio and the video has to be in sync with each other. Okay, that is the reason why the incoming data keeps buffering in advance so that there is no lag of video or audio. So that is needed over there, a real-time OS. Then another free RTOS. Students, these are just some examples, right? You don't need to actually dig into how it works in HDTV receiver and display. That is not required over here, right? These are some names: Micrium, Windows CE, VxWorks, TI, RTOS kernel. So these are some of the examples of real-time OS. Now I'll show you some uses of real-time OS. Air traffic control systems, scientific experiments, medical imaging systems, industrial control systems, weapon systems, robots, home appliance controllers, and space probes. Very interesting of that is space probes. What happens in real-time OS is, here also there are two types. One is hard real-time systems and second is soft real-time systems. Hard real-time means if a particular deadline is crossed and the work was not completed, system crash will happen. There could be a hardware destruction or maybe software destruction, system will crash. That is, some harm will take place. But in soft real-time system, only what happens is the task is not completed and deadline overrun happens. That's it. कुछ बहुत बड़ा नुकसान नहीं होगा. An example of hard real-time, space probes. Unmanned missions, when they are sent to deep space, okay, for finding more about that particular planet or moon of a planet, okay. So numerous space probes have been sent till date. These space probes, they use hard real-time operating system because there is nobody to operate the device there in space. Everybody has to operate them from mission control here here on the Earth. The signal reaches there, and it's not always very feasible to communicate also, because a round trip communication might take 2 or 3 hours or even more hours. Some even take more, like 16 hours or 24 hours to reach and then come back. So it's like, and like I'll just tell you one example. If you have seen that movie The Martian, so in that movie,
Yes, ma'am.
has anybody seen that movie? It's a very
Yes,
good
ma'am.
movie.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I have seen.
Starring Matt Damon, and he is the only person who is left behind there. And also there, you might have seen that how a round trip communication, it takes 2 hours for signal from Earth to reach Mars and from Mars to reach back to Earth. That is, if I send a message right now, the person on Mars, if there is somebody, will get it only after 2 hours. So, and if it is like anything has to be sent to a probe, on a probe which has been sent to Jupiter or Saturn, it takes even longer time. Okay, जितना आप आगे बढ़ते जाओगे, that time will increase. So most of the operations these space probes have to do on their own. So hard real-time operating systems are installed on them, which handle most of the tasks. Like a space probe, when it is sent to space, it is totally, what to say, it's in a compressed form, right? All its parts are compacted in a very limited space, within a very limited space. And when it goes, there is a stage by stage separation of the modules, and one by one the modules, they get disconnected and then they open and the space probe is launched. Then one by one all its parts are unraveled. Okay, so this is done by hard real time operating system, and it has to take place within a fixed time, or otherwise that device will become useless. Another example, when a space probe has to get into the orbit of a particular planet. So while it has to get into the orbit, there is always a possibility that if it just misses that correct time, it can crash onto the surface because of gravity of that planet, right? So there again, these are hard real-time systems. Why? Because there's always a possibility that system will crash if the task is not performed within that time frame. And talking about soft real-time systems, HDTV display, ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा क्या होगा? Your audio will lag or the video will lag, but there won't be any significant problem or disturbances. Okay, another example of hard real-time air traffic control system. There also, it is everything has to take place within a proper deadline. We can also say that sometimes in Western countries, they use a completely computerized network for handling railways. Okay, there also, if something goes wrong, if a task is not completed within time, there is a possibility of collisions between trains. ऐसा भी हो सकता है, right? So that is why these are some examples of hard real-time operating systems. See, medical imaging systems, industrial control systems, these all are examples where system crash is inevitable. Okay, and more is there for space probes. But for some home appliance controllers, it could be a soft real-time system. Why? Because at best, what will happen? The work won't be done, but there won't be any significant damage done to the system. Okay, same with robots also. Not there won't be any significant damage, only the work won't be done or the work would be done wrongly. Understood? So this type of an operating system is very much in use even till date. Then we have multi-processing operating systems. Multi-processing means capable of handling more than one processors. And basically such computers are mainframe and supercomputers. Jobs have to be scheduled on more than one processor, and in such systems, that is in multi-processing systems, they have more than one CPUs, more than one processor, where one processor is a master and rest are our slaves. So master will handle most of the task, or it will divide the task and give it to the slaves, right? So one task is divided into several small modules and each of them is handled by each of the slaves. This way work is done faster. Some examples: Windows NT, Unix, OS2, these are examples of multi-processing operating systems. Now we come to the very easy one, interactive OS. Already we work with interactive OS every day, right? Characterized by characterized by significant amounts of interaction between humans and the computer. So the normal Windows or Mac OS operating system or Android or iOS, OpenSolaris, Linux, whatever we use, and we interact with its interface, that is known as interactive. Users have grown up using Macintosh or Windows computer, which are prime examples of graphical interactive systems. You don't need to learn commands to work on such systems. I hope, first of all, types of operating systems was clear to all of you.